Have you ever found yourself maybe unconsciously picking up a friend's laugh or, a colleague's particular way of phrasing something?
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time, doesn't
And
it?
it really does. We subtly, often without even realizing it, kind of copy what we see and hear. So how much of your daily life do you think actually involves this quiet act of imitation?
Well, it's probably far more than most people think. And it's more than just simple copying. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the echo of humanity, an AI-driven study of imitation.
Right.
And this isn't just about mimicry. It's a fundamental neurocognitive process. It really underpins our social interactions, how we learn, even how our culture evolves over time.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to pull out the most important insights, maybe some surprising facts from this extensive AI-driven study. We want to help you quickly get informed about the profound and just how pervasive the impact of imitation is on all of us.
And what's particularly striking, I think, is its dual nature. Well, on one hand, it's this immense power for positive development,
Yeah.
Empathy, incredibly fast knowledge transfer, building social bonds.
You're learning skills quickly.
Right. But on the other hand, it carries this significant potential for negative consequences. Think about the rapid spread of bias or aggression or even manipulation. And you might be surprised to hear how AI is getting involved, not just in mimicking human behavior, but actually in analyzing our imitation.
Okay, that is fascinating, a great starting point. So to really unpack this, how do scientists actually define imitation? Because it sounds like it's a bit more precise than just, any kind of social influence.
You're absolutely right. In scientific terms, imitation has a specific meaning. It refers to an observer copying a model's body movement, where the behavior precisely matches the form.
Okay, precise matching.
Yes, it's a foundational type of social interaction, distinct from just broadly being influenced by someone's mood or their general ideas.
And even within that narrower definition, I understand there are different types.
Right.
Like transparent versus opaque imitation. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So transparent imitation is pretty straightforward. You can see the environmental effect of both your action and the model's action. Imagine copying someone drawing a line you can both see.
Easy enough.
But opaque imitation, that's more complex. It's when you copy actions you can't directly see yourself perform, like, say, scratching your own head while watching someone else do it.
Ah, right. You can't see your own head.
Exactly. So this requires more sophisticated cognitive mechanisms like perspective taking to really match the action accurately. It's interesting. Historically, thinkers like Gabriel Tard used a much broader concept, basically any influence one mind had on another. But modern research, especially, say, since 2000, really fueled by neuroscience, has adopted this much narrower, more empirically testable definition.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do scientists actually study something this nuanced? What's the science of the science here?
It's a truly multidisciplinary effort, which makes it really interesting. You've got psychologists using experimental designs, maybe observing how kids respond to adult models or how adults behave in controlled social games.
Standard psychology stuff.
Right. The neuroscientists employ tools like fMRI and PET scans to pinpoint the brain regions that light up during imitation. We're talking areas involved in movement, perception, planning, and importantly, the mirror neuron system, which we'll definitely get into.
Yes, mirror neurons.
Oh,
and I assume anthropologists and sociologists are involved too, looking at the bigger picture.
Precisely. They use observational studies, cross-cultural comparisons, giving us those macro-level insights into how culture spreads and changes through imitation.
Okay, but you mentioned AI earlier. That sounds like where things get really interesting.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
AI is playing a revolutionary role now. We have these AI tools, particularly sophisticated models like behavioral foundation models or BFM.
BFM.
Yeah, they're trained on these vast data sets of behavioral science information. They can process immense amounts of data, text, video, you name it, to understand and even predict human behavior, including imitative patterns, on a scale that, frankly, no human researcher could ever manage alone.
Wow. So it's almost like a feedback loop. AI was initially inspired by how humans learn, right?
That's right.
And now it's providing these incredibly powerful tools for social scientists to analyze us at these huge scales, revealing patterns maybe too complex for us to see otherwise.
That's a perfect way to put it, a recursive loop.
Yeah.
And this deeper AI-driven analysis of human imitation then feeds back, informing the development of even more sophisticated AI models. It's this self-reinforcing cycle of discovery. It's really transforming how we study ourselves.
Okay, fascinating. So beyond how we study it, let's talk about the why. Why is imitation so fundamental, so necessary for being human?
Well, it's far more than just a behavioral quirk. It's really a core neurocognitive process, deeply wired into our evolutionary history. It's indispensable for learning all those culture-specific things like facial expressions, gestures, dance moves.
Things you just pick up.
Exactly. And acquiring technical skills, too. Even in tiny infants, the ability to imitate is seen as a marker of cognitive sophistication.
And it's such a powerful engine for socialization, isn't it? For connecting with others.
It truly is. It helps us develop what psychologists call intersubjectivity, that deep, shared understanding where you really get what someone else is thinking or feeling.
Kind of putting yourself in their shoes.
Precisely. And it's absolutely crucial for language acquisition. Then, on a practical level, it enables the accumulation of knowledge and skills across generations. This isn't genetics, it's social learning.
Like learning to use tools or operate machines.
Exactly. This whole idea, sometimes called Homo imitans, man who imitates, highlights just how deep these evolutionary roots go. It's an adaptive advantage for rapid learning, often letting us bypass costly, sometimes dangerous, individual trial and error.
Okay, so let's dig into those deep roots now, starting with the biology. When people talk about a real aha moment in understanding imitation, it often comes back to mirror neurons. What exactly are they?
Mirror neurons are, well, they're pretty remarkable. They're specialized brain cells found in areas like the premotor cortex and the inferior parietal lobule.
Okay.
And they have this unique property. They activate both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing that same action.
So my brain is doing the action just by watching.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
This shared neural activation facilitates what we call understanding from the inside. It's like your brain is simulating the other person's actions, their intentions, maybe even their emotions. It's considered fundamental for empathy, for forming those deep emotional connections.
That explains why watching someone, say, stub their toe can make me wince.
Exactly. Your mirror system is firing. The core imitation circuitry involves this whole network connecting visual perception with our motor systems. It means the process is deeply embodied, tied directly to how our bodies understand and perform actions.
And I read that issues with the system might be linked to things like autism.
Yes, dysfunctions in the mirror neuron system and related imitation circuits have been implicated in conditions like autism spectrum disorder and other social cognition deficits. It's an active area of research.
Fascinating. Now, beyond the biology, psychological frameworks are also key. Albert Bandura's social learning theory comes up a lot. How does that fit in?
Bandura's theory is absolutely a cornerstone here. It posits that, well, much of our behavior is acquired observationally by watching and modeling others.
Learning by watching.
Essentially, yes. He detailed 4 key mediational processes that have to happen for observational learning to occur. First, attention, you actually have to notice the behavior.
Makes sense.
Second, retention, you need to remember it, maybe store it symbolically in your mind. Third, reproduction, you must be physically capable of replicating the action. You can watch a figure skater all day.
Wait, I'm not landing a triple axel anytime soon.
Precisely. And finally, motivation, you have to want to perform the behavior. And this is often influenced by what Bandura called vicarious reinforcement.
Vicarious reinforcement.
Yeah, seeing the perceived rewards or consequences that the model receives for their actions. If they get praised, you're more likely to imitate. If they get punished, less likely.
Okay. And this inevitably brings up that classic debate. Nature versus nurture. Is imitation innate or is it learned?
It's a really lively discussion in the field. You have the nativist view, which suggests imitation is an innate evolutionary adaptation, maybe implying we have pre-wired mirror neurons ready to go.
Born imitators.
Kind of. Then you have the associative learning account, more of an empiricist view, arguing that these mirror properties develop through learned associations after we're born by experiencing our own actions and seeing others.
So nurture shapes it.
Exactly. But many now lean towards hybrid theories, which try to reconcile both. They suggest maybe there's a genetic predisposition, a sort of biological readiness for imitation.
Okay.
But that this readiness is then crucially shaped and molded by our social experiences. Yeah. So it's a continuous interplay. Maybe some rudimentary abilities are present early on, but the full capacity is constantly honed through interaction.
That makes intuitive sense. It all really underscores imitation's deep evolutionary significance, driving adaptation, and ultimately human culture.
Absolutely. Imitation is often seen as a key factor that transformed the kind of social learning we see in other primates into the complex, cumulative cultural systems that are really unique to humans.
Right.
It allowed our ancestors to acquire sophisticated behaviors without each individual having to reinvent the wheel, so to speak.
avoiding that risky trial and error.
Right. And this leads us to something really intriguing the study highlights. Over-imitation.
Over-imitation, what's that?
Yeah,
Sounds
well,
inefficient.
it does on the surface. Over-imitation is the tendency to copy all the steps someone demonstrates to achieve a goal, even the steps that seem obviously causally irrelevant.
Like tapping the box 3 times before opening it, even if the tapping does nothing.
Exactly like that.
Mm-hmm.
While it might look inefficient, why bother with the useless tapping? This kind of high-fidelity copying, even of irrelevant actions, is thought to be crucial for the ratchet effect of cumulative culture.
The ratchet effect. That sounds important.
It is. It allows complex skills and technologies to build up steadily over generations, especially for behaviors where the causal link isn't obvious, what researchers call opaque from the perspective of physical causality. Over-imitation ensures the reliable transmission of the entire package, preventing crucial but subtle steps from being lost.
So it's how memes, in that original cultural sense, skills, habits, behaviors, get copied faithfully enough from person to person to allow our collective knowledge to build up, even if it means copying some odd bits along the way.
Precisely. It's a fascinating trade-off. The evolutionary benefit of reliable cultural transmission, ensuring that complex, hard-won knowledge isn't lost, seems to have outweighed the occasional cost of copying a few unnecessary actions. It's a cornerstone of our species' success.
That really puts a different spin on copying. Okay, moving on to how imitation plays out across the human tapestry. Let's look at development. How early does this start, and how does it change as we grow?
Imitation is crucial right from the earliest stages of life. It's fundamental for acquiring all sorts of skills, basic motor movements, speech sounds, how to play, language itself, problem solving, even foundational logic. We see rudimentary imitative abilities in newborns.
Really? Newborns?
Yes, simple facial gestures sometimes. And as individuals mature, a key development is the ability to control automatic imitative tendencies. This is called interference control.
Stopping yourself from copying.
Exactly. It's vital for suppressing irrelevant copycat responses and acting intentionally, rather than just automatically mirroring everything you see.
Now, here's a surprising fact I saw in the research. Apparently, this automatic imitation can actually get stronger again in older adults, say 70s compared to 20s.
That's right. Research does indicate that. It suggests a potential decline in that inhibitory control, that interference control, in later life, which might make older individuals perhaps a bit more susceptible to certain kinds of social influence or automatic mimicry. It's also important to note, on the developmental side, that crucial imitation skills can be effectively taught, particularly to children with autism spectrum disorder, using methods like applied behavior analysis, ABA.
Okay, so beyond individual development, imitation is obviously foundational to cultural transmission, cultural evolution. How does that work on a societal level?
Well, it's a core mechanism, alongside explicit teaching and language, for passing down knowledge, skills, beliefs, values, all the stuff of culture across generations. It ensures cultural continuity, but also facilitates cultural evolution as small changes or innovations get copied and spread. Think about how traditional recipes are handed down, often by watching and doing, or how native languages and dialects are acquired and preserved within a community.
And this isn't a new idea at all, is it? Didn't the ancient Greeks have a concept for this? Mimesis.
That's spot on. Mimesis, or imitation, was absolutely central to ancient Greek culture. It permeated everything from education students learning by imitating teachers and cultural heroes to art theory, where art was seen as imitating nature, and even religious rituals, which transmitted deeply held values through prescribed imitated actions.
Wow.
And again, that high-fidelity copying, potentially including over-imitation, is what enables societal adaptation. It allows societies to build upon past innovations that ratchet effect again and adapt effectively to diverse environments over long periods.
Okay. And finally, looking at diversity, it seems clear that how imitation is expressed gets shaped by things like gender, age, and culture. How do those factors play in?
They play a huge role. Social learning theory, for instance, provides a pretty clear explanation for how children often acquire gender-specific behaviors. They observe and imitate same-sex role models, parents, peers, characters in media.
Media being a big one there.
A very big one, often reinforcing those patterns quite strongly. Regarding age, we just touched on that interesting dynamic of interference control developing through childhood and adolescence, and then potentially declining somewhat in later life.
Right. So while the basic capacity for imitation might be a human universal, We see it everywhere, like in studies comparing kids in China and the US learning abstract rules via imitation.
Exactly. The fundamental ability seems to be there.
But the specifics are profoundly shaped by culture.
Profoundly. The specific expression of imitation, the content that gets imitated, the nuanced ways imitation happens in social interaction. These are all deeply shaped by cultural norms, communication styles, and values. Research even suggests potential cultural variations in the functioning of mirror neuron systems, possibly reflecting different social norms and experiences.
So it's like the cultural software dictates how the biological hardware gets used.
That's a great analogy. The basic machinery might be universal, but culture writes a lot of the code for how it operates in daily life.
Okay, we've laid some really strong groundwork now. Let's explore that dual nature you mentioned earlier, how imitation shapes us and our societies in both incredibly positive and sometimes profoundly negative ways. What are some of the big upsides?
Well, on the positive side, imitation is just a huge force for social cohesion and empathy. Even unconscious mimicry, subtly copying someone's posture or mannerisms, has been shown to increase liking between people.
You just feel more connected.
Exactly. It promotes pro-social behavior, fosters empathy. That mirror neuron system we talked about is key here, allowing that internal simulation of others' actions and emotions, which naturally strengthens social connections.
It's amazing how such subtle copying can build those bonds. And in terms of learning, obviously, it's huge.
Oh, absolutely fundamental. For kids, it's essential for cognitive development, language, problem solving, you name it. And social learning theory directly informs effective teaching, using role models, demonstrations, providing practice opportunities.
And it helps establish norms and rules too, right?
Definitely. Imitation, conformity, social norms. They're foundational to culture and social regulation. Think about traffic rules. We mostly learn and follow them by observing what everyone else does, creating a system for public safety. It's largely learned implicitly through imitation.
And maybe even promoting intercultural understanding.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Social learning can foster understanding by encouraging active engagement with diverse cultures. When you interact, you observe, maybe subtly imitate communication styles or norms, which can build trust and facilitate open dialogue. Exposure broadens horizons.
Okay, but then there's the flip side. Imitation's power can also lead to some genuinely concerning negative consequences.
Sadly, yes. The same powerful mechanisms can go wrong. Social learning is a major pathway for the spread of bias and prejudice. Kids, adults too, can acquire biases simply by observing interactions, seeing who gets treated how.
Learning prejudice by watching.
Unfortunately, yes. And aggressive behaviors are often learned through observation too, especially if those behaviors are seen as being rewarded or effective in some way. Media portrayals can play a big role here, sometimes normalizing violence or aggression.
And it definitely seems to open the door to manipulation and maybe unhealthy conformity.
It absolutely does. Social influence techniques often leverage our natural imitative tendencies. Think about manipulative tactics like mirroring someone's body language specifically to build false trust. Propaganda, too, relies heavily on imitation, spreading selective facts or emotionally charged narratives that people pick up and repeat. And then there's conformity bias.
Following the crowd.
Right. The tendency to go along with the majority, sometimes even overriding your own judgment or ethical compass. And there's a really provocative finding highlighted in this study. Cheating is contagious.
Cheating is contagious. Wow. That's unsettling. So just seeing someone else cheat and get away with it makes us more likely to do it. Is it just learning the behavior or something else?
It seems to be more than just learning how to cheat. It's about the perceived normalization of it. When you see someone else break a rule, especially if they face no negative consequences or even gain an advantage, it subtly shifts your perception of what's acceptable in that context.
Lowers the barrier.
Exactly. It reduces the perceived social risk and can weaken your own internal controls against that behavior. The social environment signals that maybe it's okay.
And I imagine too much conformity could even impact mental health.
It certainly could. If you're constantly suppressing your individuality to fit in, it can lead to distress, a less vibrant society, and potentially compromise your personal integrity. And for rule breaking in general, social learning theory explains how people adopt these behaviors by seeing others rewarded or avoiding punishment.
So it spreads.
It can spread.
Sure.
And the study also points out how the blind imitation of past traditions, particularly narrow interpretations or harmful stereotypes, can be a root cause of prejudice, hatred, and ongoing conflict.
So the very things that make social learning so powerful for good efficiency, social connection, also make it incredibly potent for spreading harmful stuff, a real
Yeah.
double-edged sword.
It truly is. Our deep-seated drive to learn from and fit in with others, while hugely beneficial overall, can be exploited or lead us astray. It really highlights why conscious awareness, critical thinking, and strong ethical frameworks are so crucial.
Let's also briefly touch on how imitation interacts with maybe broader dimensions. Like, does it affect our perception of time, history, genetics?
The link to time perception is probably indirect, but shared experiences and emotions, which imitation helps foster, can subtly synchronize how a group experiences time. If everyone's engaged in the same rhythmic activity or sharing a strong emotional response triggered by mimicry,
It might feel like time passes differently together.
it's plausible it could subtly modulate collective time perception. Historically, though, imitation's influence is undeniable.
We mentioned mimesis.
Right, and debates about how agriculture spread, was it people migrating or ideas diffusing through imitation? Plus, the consistent use of propaganda throughout history clearly relies on imitative social influence.
And the connection to genetics and biology. Is imitation hardwired?
It's deeply intertwined. The fact that we see rudimentary imitation so early suggests an innate basis. Research indicates genetic factors influence our propensity to imitate, somewhat independently of general cognitive ability. The mirror neuron system itself is widely considered an evolutionary adaptation.
But it's still nature and nurture.
Absolutely. It's that complex interplay again, genetic predispositions interacting constantly with environmental learning and social experiences.
Okay, let's shift focus now to imitation's interplay with, well, nature itself, the environment. It turns out our tendency to copy has had a massive ecological footprint.
It's a really striking connection when you look at it that way. Humanity's incredible global expansion, our ability to live almost anywhere, is largely down to our capacity to adapt by copying successful behaviors. How to find food, build shelter, manage resources in vastly different climates.
Learning from others was key to survival.
Absolutely. And our unique capacity for over-imitation, the engine of cumulative culture, has allowed us to scale up our actions dramatically, from localized impacts to now planetary scale forces.
So something like early agriculture, clearing land, burning forests, that spread through cultural diffusion, which is basically imitation on a large scale.
Precisely. People saw it worked, they copied it, adapted it. And the archaeological evidence is fascinating. It suggests that human activity, coinciding with the widespread adoption of agriculture, started having a detectable warming effect on the global climate as far back as 5,000 years ago.
Wow, so imitation was an amplifying driver of human-caused environmental change, even way back then.
It really highlights its power as an amplifier, which means today it acts as a powerful amplifier for both sustainable and unsustainable environmental behaviors. It's that double-edged sword again, but playing out on a planetary scale.
How so?
Well, ideas, behaviors, emotions, they all propagate through our social networks. This profoundly influences collective choices about consumption, energy use, conservation. Mass media, influential figures, even powerful nations can condition behavior through social learning.
Like the spread of recycling programs or bans on plastic bags.
Exactly. Those often spread through observation, social pressure, imitation. Social learning also helps share knowledge about sustainable design, green technologies, best practices.
But it cuts the other way, too.
It does. It can create consumer clusters with specific, maybe high-impact preferences. Environmental awareness itself can spread, or fail to spread, based on these social learning dynamics within different groups.
The study mentioned plant-based meats as an interesting example.
Yes, it's a great case study. Plant-based alternatives deliberately leverage imitation. They're designed to look and taste like animal meat, to encourage a shift towards more sustainable consumption by making the switch feel less drastic, more familiar.
Clever.
And crucially, leaders. Celebrities, politicians, community figures act as powerful hubs for imitation. Their choices, whether sustainable or not, tend to have disproportionately large ripple effects through the social network.
That makes total sense. And this extends even to our interactions with animals.
It does, surprisingly. The research suggests a reciprocal imitative dynamic. We're obviously very social with companion animals like dogs and cats, and pet ownership itself promotes social capital.
But animals learn from us, too.
Absolutely. They learn extensively from humans and from other animals. Think about a dog learning commands, or animals learning fear responses by observing others. It highlights this bidirectional social learning process. We can imitate nature, biomimicry, and design as a conscious example, and our domesticated animals are constantly learning from us. They're human models.
Okay, this brings us to perhaps the most cutting-edge part of this deep dive, the AI perspective. How is artificial intelligence giving us a completely new lens on human imitation?
It's a fascinating convergence.
Right.
AI systems themselves are increasingly incorporating social learning principles, inspired directly by us. Instead of just explicit programming, they learn by observing and imitating, whether human demonstrators or other AI agents.
Makes them more adaptable.
Dramatically so. A key methodology here is called imitation learning, or sometimes learning from demonstration, LFD. Basically, you collect data of an expert performing a task. The AI learns a policy to mimic that behavior, and then you evaluate how well it does.
And this is already being used in some pretty amazing applications, right?
Yeah,
Robotics, self-driving cars.
exactly. Robots can learn complex tasks like intricate assembly or even surgical maneuvers just by observing human experts. Autonomous vehicles learn driving policies by watching human drivers. AI agents have reached superhuman levels in complex games, partly through imitating successful strategies. It's also improving human-AI collaboration and being used in intelligent tutoring systems for education.
But this seems like a big but. The research stresses that current AI models still really struggle with fully understanding the dynamics of human social interaction. Why is that?
It's a profound challenge and a major limitation right now. Humans consistently outperform AI in interpreting dynamic social scenes, understanding the context, the intentions, the goals, the subtle cues in real-life interactions.
So AI can copy the movement but doesn't get the why.
Often, yes. Part of the issue might be technical problem. Many AI vision systems are modeled on brain areas good at processing static images, not necessarily the complex fluid dynamics of social situations.
But it feels like more than just a technical problem. Why does AI struggle with this kind of human smarts in imitation?
It really seems to be more fundamental. The core limitation likely stems from AI's lack of true embodied experience. Human imitation isn't just visual processing. It's deeply rooted in our physical bodies, our motor systems, our lived experience of interacting with a dynamic social world.
That intrinsic feeling of having a body and moving it.
Precisely. AI can process the visual data of an action, but it doesn't feel the intention behind it in the same way we do because it lacks that embodied grounding. Simply mimicking observed actions isn't the same as the rich, predictive, intention-reading imitation humans do. Achieving that true, human-like imitation might require AI to have some form of embodied cognition, which is still a huge hurdle.
So AI can't quite be us, but it can still be an incredible tool for understanding us on a large scale, a kind of macroscope.
That's a great way to put it. AI excels at observing and identifying patterns in human behavior at a population-level trends that are often completely invisible to us as individuals. Take natural language processing, NLP.
Analyzing text data.
Right. It allows social scientists to process these massive data sets, social media posts, messages, transcripts, to uncover deep insights into thought patterns, linguistic cues, motivations, values, cultural shifts. Things you just couldn't find manually.
And you mentioned those behavioral foundation models, BEAT-FM, earlier. They're specifically designed for this.
Yes, BEAT-FM systems are engineered specifically to predict, simulate, and reason about human actions, drawing on vast behavioral science knowledge. Studies show they actually outperform general-purpose AI models on tasks like predicting personality traits or simulating behavior in economic models or public policy scenarios.
They can deduce psychological traits just from behavioral data.
Apparently so, which could potentially guide personalized interventions in areas like health or education, though obviously with ethical considerations.
And beyond analyzing human behavior, the principle of imitation or modeling seems to be a powerful tool in scientific discovery itself.
It absolutely is. It's used as a heuristic across many fields. In physics, for instance, scientists create imitations or analogs of complex phenomena, like using lasers to create quasi-particles that mimic properties of dark matter axions, providing experimental platforms.
Simulating the real thing.
Exactly. In biology and medicine, researchers are imitating nature with increasingly complex 3D tissue models, or organoids, to understand biological systems and test drugs more effectively. Even in math, some talk about the fluid skills of expert mathematicians involving a kind of adaptive imitation or modeling of successful problem-solving strategies.
And it's interesting to remember the Turing test, the classic test for AI, was originally called the imitation game.
That's a great point. Its whole premise is whether a machine's behavior can be indistinguishable from, can successfully imitate human behavior. AI itself is often framed as this huge paradigm shift, the fifth paradigm of scientific discovery, built on modeling and simulation. Even how scientific theory spreads seems to follow imitation dynamics. Who you imitate often matters more than the details based on perceived success.
This leads us to a really fascinating paradox you touched on earlier. AI, itself a product of advanced imitation, is now maybe our most powerful tool against harmful human misinformation, which often spreads precisely because of imitative social learning.
It's a striking dynamic, isn't it?
Man.
AI offers powerful tools to automate the identification, flagging, and sometimes removal of false or harmful information, using NLP and machine learning to analyze content at scale.
Tracking how it spreads, helping fact-checkers.
Right. AI can track dissemination patterns, assist human fact-checkers, even provide trustworthiness ratings for news sources based on linguistic patterns and network analysis.
But there are obvious risks here, right? Algorithmic bias, censorship.
Absolutely critical challenges. AI tools can be counterproductive if they're biased or if they lead to unfair censorship. This makes responsible AI development absolutely paramount.
What does that involve?
It means rigorous adherence to principles like fairness, constantly testing for and mitigating bias in algorithms used for content moderation. Transparency, using explainable AI XAI techniques so we can understand why a decision was made. Accountability, having clear documentation and traceability for auditing. And security, protecting the training data and the models themselves from manipulation.
So it's this complex situation where we're using AI to detect and potentially mitigate the negative consequences of human imitation, but we have to be incredibly careful and ethical about how we build and deploy that AI.
Precisely. It's a high-stakes balancing act.
Okay, as we start to wrap up this really rich deep dive, we have to grapple with the ethical implications more directly. Is imitation itself inherently moral or immoral?
Well, the consensus is that it's neither. Imitation itself is morally neutral. Its ethical status depends entirely on the context, the intent behind the imitation, and crucially, its consequences.
Right. It builds cohesion, but
it can also stifle creativity or lead people to conform to unjust norms, compromising their integrity. That conformity bias we discussed and the idea that cheating is contagious are powerful reminders that our ethical behavior is profoundly influenced by the social norms we observe and the perceived consequences for others. You could almost call it a social contagion of morality, for better or worse.
So understanding that harmful actions, aggression, addiction, prejudice are often learned through these social imitative processes is really crucial for how society responds, isn't it? It maybe shifts the focus from pure punishment.
It absolutely should. Social learning theory helps explain how problematic habits, like addiction, are formed through observation, reinforcement, environmental cues. But crucially, it also suggests how they can be unlearned. Recovery strategies often explicitly leverage SLT principles. Think about group therapy providing new social models, sponsors acting as positive role models, learning coping skills by observing others, rewarding steps towards healthier habits. That saying, connection is the opposite of addiction, really speaks to the power of positive social learning and supportive relationships in overcoming harmful learned behaviors.
And what about accountability then? If behaviors are learned, what does accountability look like?
True accountability, from this perspective, moves beyond just assigning blame or punishment. It involves recognizing the harm caused, taking responsibility, actively working to repair that harm where possible, and committing to preventing future harm. It's fundamentally about communication, acknowledgement, and repair, not just retribution.
And this connects to ideas like restorative justice.
Exactly. Restorative justice practices prioritize repairing harm. They bring together victims, offenders, and community members in non-adversarial processes to understand the impact, promote accountability, and work towards healing and reconciliation. It's about helping individuals and communities unlearn harmful patterns and relearn pro-social ones by leveraging supportive social learning principles within the justice system itself.
And understanding things like moral injury seems important too.
Very important. That's the psychological distress that can occur when someone's actions, perhaps under pressure or duress, violate their own deeply held moral beliefs. Recognizing this is vital for healing and rehabilitation.
Finally, let's talk about leadership. Ethical leadership and the cultural values it promotes seem pivotal in shaping the kinds of imitation we see in organizations or society.
They are profoundly influential. Ethical leaders act as powerful models. By consistently demonstrating behaviors like honesty, fairness, integrity, and accountability, and then reinforcing those behaviors in others, they shape the acceptable conduct for the entire group.
And that has positive effects.
Absolutely. Research shows it leads to increased commitment, trust, collaboration, psychological safety, and resilience within the group. Followers learn what's valued and expected by observing and imitating the leader.
But there's a caution here, too, right, against just blindly copying other leaders.
Precisely. Blind imitation of leadership styles or strategies from elsewhere can stifle innovation and authenticity. True, effective leadership often involves articulating and embodying core values that are unique and meaningful to that specific organization or community, not just mimicking trends.
So finding your own path informed by values.
Yes. And democratic leadership styles are often highlighted as a positive example. They solicit diverse ideas, unite people around a shared purpose, encourage inclusion, critical thinking, and empowerment, essentially fostering a healthy learning environment where positive social modeling can thrive.
So there we have it. This deep dive into the echo of humanity, an AI-driven study of imitation, really paints a picture of a phenomenon that is, well, incredibly complex and just fundamentally pervasive.
It really is. It's a core neurocognitive process, as we've discussed, with these profound positive and negative impacts shaping our individual lives, our learning, our relationships, and our entire societies.
And AI is genuinely transforming how we understand it, giving us that macroscope view.
Absolutely. We've seen how imitation is this indispensable force for good. It fosters empathy, accelerates knowledge transfer, builds social cohesion. It's fundamental to what makes us human.
Yet it's equally potent on the negative side, contributing to the spread of bias, aggression, manipulation, harmful norms.
It's clear that imitation isn't just some neutral copying mechanism. It acts as this powerful social learning engine that dramatically amplifies whatever behaviors, attitudes, and values are most prominently observed and reinforced in our environment. It's like a mirror, but one that often magnifies what it reflects.
So the final thought for you listening. Given that imitation is so duckily ingrained in us, so automatic much of the time, what does this understanding mean for your personal responsibility? You're always a model for someone, right?
That's a key question. How can you practice more conscious, more selective imitation in your own life? Choosing who and what you emulate.
And maybe just as importantly, how can you become more aware of when imitation is being used subtly, perhaps to influence or manipulate you?
We really hope this discussion encourages you to cultivate that critical thinking, that discernment, that independent judgment, to perhaps shift, where possible, from unconscious copying towards more deliberate, informed learning and modeling.
Both for yourself and thinking about the impact you have on future generations who will inevitably learn by watching you.
Ultimately, understanding the science of imitation provides, we think, a kind of foundational roadmap. A map for fostering healthier individuals, more cohesive and ethical societies, and maybe even a more balanced relationship with the natural world we all share.
This is DigitView.